Keith McGowan here, the Outboard Dad, here to help you have a better boating experience. Let's talk about what outboard motors you should avoid and why you should avoid them. First in line is the Evinrude FICHT engine. Now, if you're out looking for a boat that has a motor on it, or you're looking for a motor for your boat and it has one of these FICHT motors on it, probably a good idea to stay away. That doesn't mean if it's running that you can't go out and run and enjoy it for a while, but if you start having challenges with these, you're going to want to do some research and find out what those challenges were. The injectors had problems on them. The bearings had problems because of lack of proper lubrication from the oil pumps. So again, if all those systems are working properly, those engines can run, but if you're going to buy something that you want reliability, first thing I recommend all the time is take it out on the water for a test run. Don't just trust that it's going to run fine when you get it out on the water. Take it out, run it for over an hour. Don't just take it out around the bay real quick, one hook, and then just come back in. Get it out there and run it. Other motors to avoid. Yamaha from 2003 to 2006, their four-stroke motors had issues with corrosion with their midsections. Doesn't mean you can't find one that's running, maybe even a freshwater one, but this corrosion also happened in freshwater. So you want to look out for that. Again, doesn't mean you can't make a repair on it, but it is going to be costly if you're not doing it yourself. You're going to have to pay a mechanic probably $1,000 to pull the power head if the bolts don't all break, and also replace that part and get it back together again. Now there are ways to inspect this. If you pull a lower unit off and you snake a camera in there, you can inspect that to see if it's badly corroded or if that part has been replaced, because Yamaha did make a replacement that was coated and a different style aluminum that doesn't rot out as fast. So that's number 2 to look out for. Number 3, we're going to go back to the 60s and 70s when they had those Chrysler motors. If you're buying an older boat and the guy says, oh man, this thing ran great for years, just avoid the Chrysler motors. It's just not worth it. Now, why is it not worth it? They're just older motors. They weren't very sophisticated. They stalled a lot. I know guys that have those motors that ran them for years and love them. They're probably mechanics who got to know how those motors ran. And if you're looking for a reliable motor where you can go turnkey and go and have fun, it's probably a good idea to avoid it. Again, not going to say that you can't get one running if you desire to, or maybe you already have a boat with a Chrysler and you want to see if you can get it running. As long as it has good compression, lower unit is good, power tilt and trim works okay without leaking, it's okay to invest a little bit of money to see if you can get out on the water and enjoy it maybe for a season or two. On the list is Force. The Force motors were just cheaper motors. They were very inexpensive at the time, mostly carbureted motors. I don't think I've ever seen a fuel-injected one because they went out of business. I believe Mercury bought that part of them out. So avoid the Force for the same reasons you avoid the Chrysler. Older motors, they weren't made very well, and doesn't mean, again, you can't get one running. So I know there's guys out there that are going to send me, comments, hey, I've had one for 35 years and it runs great. More power to you. If you can do that and keep a motor running, beautiful, but we're talking about someone who's buying something now, what to avoid. Next motors you want to be careful of. So now I'm going to get into the range of be careful of, because some of these motors run great if the maintenance is done properly. And that's the Mercury Optimax motors. A little more sophisticated. They had an air pump system and a fuel pump system, and a very close ratio of air to fuel mixture. I believe it was only 10 pounds higher for your fuel pressure as it is your air pressure. The air pumps were never really maintained properly. Get a little bit of salt water in them, don't get flushed properly. The O-ring, where the O-rings lay, get eaten away at, and they can be very expensive to replace. Again, doesn't mean you can't get it running, but those maintenance items very rarely get handled properly. And you could be buying a motor that has a very costly repair coming up to it that's very sophisticated and has to run properly. 9 times out of 10, if you're not really handy and have the Mercury scan tool to diagnostic tool, you're going to be at a Mercury shop paying top dollar to get a motor like that running. And you could have invested that money to a better motor, newer motor, that would give you more reliability. Next thing I'm going to tell you to look out for when you're looking at your outboard motor See if the lower unit is from the original manufacturer. Does it look new? Does it say SEI on it? The way I look at SEI lower units is someone put it on there because they wanted to save money and get it running so that they can enjoy it maybe a season or two and then sell it off. So SEI makes very inexpensive knockoff lower units. Same thing with inboard outboards, but since I'm the outboard dad, we're going to stay away from that. And getting parts for those is very difficult from SEI. I've ordered some SEI seals before, and when I went to put them in, didn't fit right. Got some sleeves from SEI, and it just was kind of messy, didn't work very well. And what do they tell you? Well, it's out of its 3-year warranty, buy a new one. So the way I think about that is Harbor Freight, right? I love Harbor Freight tools. Got a bunch of them sitting here. But if I break it, I'm just going to go get another one. So lower unit, breaking out on the water, I want to have reliability and hopefully to make it back home. So I would avoid a motor that has an SEI lower unit unless you're purchasing at a deep discount and you're going to go ahead and buy a lower unit that maybe was from a freshwater motor that is in good condition that you've tested and you can put on that motor. When we get into larger motors, we want to talk about 7 Marine. Boy, they were the bomb when they first came out. Cadillac engine, ran smooth. They were putting on all these big yachts. It was pretty cool. Yeah, well, they had a lot of challenges and went out of business from what I hear. Now, maybe I'm wrong. Sometimes guys say, no, I can still get parts. They're still open. But, you know, you want to avoid it. You want to stick with the main manufacturers. Yamaha had their issues, but they still are going strong. Mercury had a few motors with issues. Just like cars, every brand has a certain model that had an issue with it. Johnson Evinrude went out of business because of their FICHT motors, and they were bought out by Bombardier. So everything changes. You have to keep an eye on things. I had a rule of thumb from an old timer that said if they come out with a new design, I'm going to let someone else run it for a few years and make sure it's going to work properly before I buy something like that. So that's our top motors to look out for, and we hope to see you out on the water. Please like, subscribe, send me any comments that you have. Right now, for a limited time, $20 value. If you subscribe to my channel, you get a free used outboard motor buying guide. All the things you need to do to find out how to go through a motor thoroughly to make sure you know what you're getting. This is Keith McGowan, the Outboard Dad, hoping you have a better boating experience.